Welcome back. There are at least two new pieces of legislation being considered at the Capitol that would give police around the state a little more power to punish the people who are showing up in neighborhoods and at condo complexes and breaking into cars. It's a problem happening in Shelton, which is the community that State Representative Jason Perillo serves. He's joining us, along with Cromwell Town Manager Anthony Salvatore, the town's former police chief. Welcome to both of you. Representative Perillo, let's start with you. Tell me why we're doing this.
What we're seeing, not just in my hometown of Shelton, but across the state, is very organized groups of juveniles, in many ways, honestly, terrorizing communities night after night, breaking into vehicles, stealing vehicles. These aren't cute little kids just having a little bit of fun. It's very, very dangerous. And right now, police just don't have the tools that they need. And the judicial system doesn't have the tools that it needs to ensure that there's law and order in these situations.
Well, let me ask you about that. Obviously, breaking into cars, looting through them, taking valuables, stealing the cars, that's all illegal now. So why do we need a change?
Well, what happens right now, Eric, is that juveniles are in a different system than adults when it comes to how they're sentenced and how they're dealt with. And the system right now basically allows juveniles to be repeat offenders over and over again. They know that, and they take advantage of it. So the way that a juvenile is dealt with is very different than the way that an adult is dealt with. So those consequences just aren't there. And there's not a lot of teeth in the system at this point. And unless the legislature takes action, we're going to see this continue. It's the legislature's job to change this.
All right, I want to turn now to Chief Salvatore, former Chief Salvatore. Chief, tell us, what are police officers around the state seeing? Is this something that's in many of the 169 communities in Connecticut?
As the representative stated, it is absolutely affecting the entire state. And he's 100% correct. The major problem is there's no consequences. Even when our officers are finally arresting these individuals, there's no deterrent. And they just go right back out and commit these crimes again. And for instance, as he alluded to, we had a situation over the weekend where a pizza delivery boy was making a delivery in a condo complex. A group of youths followed him into the complex in a stolen car. As soon as he got out of his car, he left it running, went up to the door to deliver the pizza. One of the youth in the other stolen car got out, stole his vehicle, and left the area. And unfortunately, the lad was without his vehicle. And when our officers finally were able to piece it together, they came up with both the vehicles, and the vehicles they had used was in fact stolen also. The main thing here is, since the law was changed in 2012, is there's no consequences. We've got to build some consequences back to deter these youth from committing these types of crimes.
So, Representative Perillo, I'll turn back to you. You've both said no consequences. So what would this proposal do to change that? How will those consequences work, and how do you think it will reach those teenagers?
Sure. And what it will do is, especially for repeat offenders, it will elevate these crimes from juvenile court into the adult docket. And that in and of itself changes the entire dynamic of the consequences and really puts some teeth into the law and starts to become a deterrent. And as I mentioned before, and I think it's important to remember this, these are not kids just having a good time. They know the system, they know exactly what they're doing, and they know how to get around it. So they are utilizing those changes in the law that Chief referenced from 2012. They're utilizing them to their advantage. And in fact, the so-called police accountability bill that was passed last summer doesn't help either, because it really makes it very, very difficult for law enforcement to do their job. It's really tough for police officers to do the work that they need to do. They can't do it in the first place because their resources are limited. Their ability to pursue is limited. And then at the same time, the next night, that same kid is back on the street doing the exact same thing.
Well, you know what many of the critics to this say, though, is that a proposal like yours will disproportionately affect minority communities. It'll affect the poor communities in our state. How do you address those concerns, and does your bill do anything to address those concerns?
The legislation will impact criminals. at the end of the day. These are individuals who are breaking into vehicles. They're stealing vehicles. That's who it impacts. So I think at some point we need to say whose rights are more important. I think it's the right of the individual going about his day, sleeping at 2 a.m, whose car gets stolen out from in front of his driveway. I think that's the person we need to be super focused on. And those are the rights we need to be laser focused on preserving. That's what this bill does.
Now, Chief Salvatore, a lot of police departments have made this a big focus. I know West Hartford on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, they put up a message every night at 9 o'clock reminding people in their community to lock their cars. You may know I practice law during the week. I just had a client in last week who said his car was stolen out of his garage. And I said, where were the keys? And he shook his head and he said, yeah, they were in the cup holder. So is there also a message for just the citizens out there that you also have some steps you have to take?
Well, and again, everything the representative said, I 100% agree with. But let's get something straight. And I had a legislator tell me, part of the problem is that the victim leaves the keys in the car, or the victim leaves some type of valuable item in their vehicle. I'm sorry, I totally disagree with that. I mean, it's not smart. I wouldn't do it. But at the end of the day, nobody has a right to go onto your property, steal your motor vehicle, or steal your motor vehicle out of your garage, or go through your car and steal items out of it. That's against the law. And just because I choose to leave an item in my car doesn't give you a right to take it. And these are the things that have to be, we got to send the right message to these kids that there will be consequences. And I'm not saying incarceration right away. And again, I haven't had a chance to review the bills as they're being proposed, but I could certainly support something that has counseling in the beginning, community service, and then eventually lead up to some form possibly of incarceration down the road. But it has to be a series of consequences in order to change the attitudes here.
All right, Chief Salvatore, Representative Perillo, we appreciate you both being with us, obviously early in the process here, so we'll be following this and see how it all plays out. Thank you both.